There is so much to learn about every single ghost in Phasmophobia, and if you clicked on this video, it's probably because you realize that the journal is terrible for giving accurate information on what each ghost does. But that doesn't matter because by the end of this video, you're gonna know what every single ghost does in Phasmophobia. This guide will follow a very simple concept for each ghost. We're gonna go in the order that the journal lists the ghost. We're gonna cover every ghost 3 pieces of evidence, the sanity that the ghost can hunt at, the speed that the ghost moves during a hunt, what the behavior of the ghost does, and then we will cover that ghost's abilities and their no evidence tells. But I don't want to waste any more time, so let's get right into it. First up, we have the Banshee. The Banshee is a female ghost with the evidence combination of ultraviolet, ghost orbs, and dots. The Banshee can hunt when her chosen target reaches 50% sanity and below, and during a hunt, it moves at a speed of 1.7 meters a second, which sounds like this. The Banshee at the start of a contract will choose a target and will pursue that target until that target is dead. The way that the Banshee's targeting system works is that it will choose any random member of the lobby at the start of the contract. After that target is dead, the host will always be the second chosen target if they were not chosen the first time. After the host is dead, the Banshee's target will be chosen in the order that the players joined the lobby. However, if you're solo, obviously none of this matters and you will always be the target. The Banshee also has a 66% chance to stalk and roam to his target if the target is inside without leaving an EMF reading. However, it cannot go between floors to roam to its target. So if you find that your ghost is following you around constantly, Banshee is definitely an option. Banshees also prefer staying in ghost events and will do them more frequently than every other ghost. And on top of that, the Banshee can only be a female model and name. If your ghost has a male name or is a male model, you can immediately rule out a Banshee. The way to identify a Banshee with no evidence is with a parabolic microphone or a sound recorder, as the Banshee has a 33% chance to give a 1 of 20 different Banshee wails through the parabolic microphone and the sound recorder. And this is an example of what some of those sound like. Next up, the Dayan. Dayans have the evidence combination of EMF 5, Ghost Orbs, and Spirit Box. They have 3 different sanities that they can hunt at. The first one is 65% sanity, and hunt can be triggered at the sanity when a player is near the ghost and walking. The second is 45% sanity, at which a hunt can be triggered when a player is near the ghost and standing still. And lastly, it can hunt at 50% sanity when a player is standing away from the ghost. The Dayan has 3 different speeds that it moves at during a hunt. If the nearest player to the ghost is walking within 10 meters of it, the Dayan will move at 2.25 meters a second, and this is what that sounds like. The second speed of 1.2 meters a second occurs if the nearest player to the ghost is not moving within 10 meters of the ghost, and this is what that sounds like. And lastly, the third speed that the Dayan can move at is 1.7 meters a second, also referred to as normal speed. This occurs if all the players in the contract are further than 10 meters away from the ghost, and this is what that speed sounds like. The Dayan's entire no evidence identification revolves around testing for its speed during a hunt, but it does help that Dayan, just like Banshee, can only be a female model and name, meaning that if your ghost has a male name or is a male model, you can immediately rule out a Dayan. I do want to pause for a second and say that if you guys do enjoy this video, then consider subscribing, as I want to see if I can hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and your sub would mean the world to me. On top of that, if you enjoy live Phasmophobia gameplay, then I do stream multiple times a week at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch, so the link to my Twitch and my Discord is both in the description. Alright, let's not waste any more time and let's get into the next ghost that we'll be discussing. Let's talk about the Demon. Demons have the evidence combination of ultraviolet, ghost riding, and freezing temperatures. Demon have the ability to hunt you at any sanity, even if you just stepped inside. Outside of using a special ability to hunt, it has a hunting sanity threshold of 70%, and it also has a normal speed of 1.7 meters a second during a hunt, and this is what that sounds like. Crucifixes are especially strong against demons, as the crucifix's range are increased by 50% per tier when the ghost is a demon. Outside of it hunting at any sanity, there are 2 ways to identify a demon on no evidence. The first way is by timing how long it takes in between hunts when there is no smudge active. Demon is the only ghost that can hunt 20 seconds after the previous hunt has ended, or if a crucifix was used. Every other ghost time that they have to wait is 25 seconds. And the second way is through the time that it takes to be able to hunt again after being smudged. Normally, when a ghost is smudged, they have to wait 1 minute and 30 seconds to try and hunt again. However, the demon only has to wait 60 seconds after being smudged before it can initiate a hunt again, meaning if you smudge your ghost and it hunts before 1 minute and 30 seconds goes by, it's a demon. Next up, the Deogen. The Deogen is a really fun ghost to deal with. Its evidence combination is Spirit Box, Ghost Riding, and Dots. It has a hunting sanity threshold of 40% and changes its speed as it gets closer to the player that is targeting at the time. When the Deogen is far away from its target, it will move at a speed of 3 meters a second, and this is what that sounds like. But as the Deogen gets closer to his target, it will slow down and eventually reaching a speed of 0.4 meters a second. And this is what that sounds like. The The Deogen always has line of sight on a player, making it 100% impossible to hide from a Deogen, meaning the only way to survive a Deogen hunt is to run away from it or loop it around something. When you are asking a spirit box questions within 1 meter of a Deogen, it has a 33% chance to give you this really cool and unique breathing response on the spirit box, which can only occur with Deogens. This is what that sounds like. When playing certain difficulties where 1 or 2 pieces of evidences are being hidden, such as Nightmare or Insanity, Spirit Box will always be a guaranteed piece of evidence for Deogen. The only way to identify Deogen on no evidence is through the speed of the ghost during a hunt. Next up, let's talk about the Gallu, because there is a lot to understand about this ghost. Let's start with its evidence: EMF 5, Ultraviolet, and Spirit Box. The Gallu has 3 different sanities and speeds that it can hunt at. When it's in its normal state, it can hunt at 50% sanity and moves at 1.7 meters per second. This is what that sounds like. When the Gallu is in its enraged state, it can hunt at 60% sanity and moves at 1.96 meters a second. This is what that sounds like. And lastly, when the Gallu is in its weakened state, it can hunt at 40% sanity and moves at 1.36 meters per second. And this is what that sounds like. When you start a contract, the Gallu will start in its normal state, and it will cycle between its 3 states: normal, enraged, and weakened, in that order. The switch to a different state happens when the Gallu steps in salt, is hit by an incense, or uses a crucifix. Once the Gallu does one of those 3 things that becomes enraged, it will stay that way until the end of a hunt. While enraged, the Gallu is only blinded by smudges for 4 seconds, has a decreased crucifix range of 2 meters, and will not disturb any salt that it walks over, which can be confused for a Wraith. Once the hunt is over, the Gallu becomes weakened. This is when it will start moving slowly during hunts, has the low hunting sanity threshold, is blinded for 6 seconds during a hunt by an incense, has an increased crucifix range of 1 meter, and it will disturb salt again. Once the Gallu is incensed, uses a crucifix, or steps in salt while it's in the weakened state, it will then return to its normal state, and then the cycle continues. Next, let's talk about the Goryo. The Goryo has the evidence combination of EMF 5, Ultraviolet, and dots. However, Goryo dots are only visible through a video camera and when nobody is inside of the ghost room. The Goryo can hunt at 50% average sanity and moves at a speed of 1.7 meters per second during a hunt. And this is what that sounds like. Goryos are not found wandering from the room often. On top of that, the Goryo is unable to change its favorite room at all during a contract, meaning that if your ghost does a room change, you can rule out Goryo. The Goryo will enter the dot state more frequently than all other ghosts, and if you're playing a difficulty like Nightmare or Insanity, where you only have 1 or 2 pieces of evidence, then dots is always going to be guaranteed for Goryo. Next up, let's talk about Hantus. The Hantu has an evidence combination of Ultraviolet, Ghost Orbs, and freezing temperatures. Hantus will hunt at an average sanity of 50% and will change its speed depending on the temperature of the room that it's in. When standing in colder temperature rooms, the Hantu becomes faster during hunts and will move at 2.7 meters per second, and this is what that sounds like. On the other hand though, when standing in warmer temperature rooms, the Hantu will be slower during hunts, moving at 1.4 meters per second, and this is what that sounds like. The Hantu does not have any line of sight speed up, so you're able to loop it as much as you want, and it will not speed up. The only time your Hantu will change speeds is when the temperature in the room changes. Hantus are more likely to turn off the breaker than all other ghosts, and are also not able to turn on the breaker at all, meaning if your ghost turns on the breaker, you can immediately rule out Hantu as an option. Hantus will have visible freezing breath coming from the ghost model's mouth during a hunt when the breaker is set to off or broken. This makes the Hantu very easy to identify with 0 evidence. And to end off our section about Hantu, if you're playing on Nightmare or Insanity difficulty, where you only have 1 or 2 pieces of evidence, then freezing temperatures will always be a guaranteed piece of evidence for Hantu. Next, let's talk about the Jinn. Jinns have an evidence combination of EMF 5, Ultraviolet, and freezing temperatures. Jinns can start hunting when the average sanity hits 50% and has 2 speeds that it moves at during a hunt. When the breaker is on and the Jinn is further than 3 meters away from a player that it has line of sight on, it will speed up to 2.5 meters per second, and this is what that sounds like. However, when the breaker is off, Jinns will move at 1.7 meters per second, and this is what that sounds like. Because of its speed up ability that is dependent on the breaker being on, Jinns are not able to turn the breaker off, meaning that if your ghost turns the breaker off, you can rule out Jinn as an option. Jinns can also drop a player's sanity by 25% with the breaker on, as long as that player is within 3 meters or in the same room as the ghost. When this happens, it will leave an EMF level 2 or EMF level 5 at the breaker. Next up, we have the Mare. Mares have the evidence combination of Spirit Box, Ghost Orbs, and Ghost Riding. It has 2 sanities that it can hunt at, 60% average sanity if the light switch is in the off position in the current room that the ghost is in, and 40% if the light switch is in the on position. However, if the lights in the ghost current room are busted out by a ghost event, it will always be 60%. The Mare will move at a speed of 1.7 meters per second during a hunt, and this is what that sounds like. Mares will wander more if the lights are on in its current room, and they also prefer turning off lights and light bursting ghost events. Mares are not able to turn on lights of any kind. This will always include light switches and lamps. However, mares are also currently not able to turn on TVs and computer monitors, as these counts as light sources. This can change at any point if the devs want to fix it, but it's been in the game for 2 years now, so that is highly unlikely. The mare has an ability where it can immediately turn off a light switch or lamp that a player has turned on within 4 meters of the ghost. Be careful though, because ghost events can also turn off light switches and lamps that you just turned on, sometimes confusing it with the mare ability. Mares are also able to use this ability during ghost events, making it the only ghost in the game that can interact with the light during a ghost event. Next, let's go ahead and talk about the Moroi. Morois have the evidence combination of Spirit Box, Ghost Writing, and freezing temperatures. It can start hunting at 50% average sanity, and the speed of a Moroi depends if the average sanity is low or high. When the average sanity is above 45%, the Moroi will move at a slower speed than normal, moving at a pace of 1.5 meters per second. And this is what that sounds like. When the average sanity is 0, the Moroi will move at a faster speed of 2.25 meters per second. And this is what that sounds like. Anytime that a Moroi response on the Spirit Box gives you a parabolic response or a sound on the sound recorder that is recorded, it will place a curse on the player who hears the response. This curse will cause your sanity to passively drain twice as fast, even when you're inside of a fully lit room. The only way to stop this curse is for the cursed player to take any tier of sanity medication. When a Moroi gets smudged during a hunt, it is blinded for 7 seconds instead of the usual 5 seconds for all other ghosts. This is a pretty easy way to identify it on no evidence. And lastly, when playing on a difficulty like Nightmare or Insanity, where you only get 1 or 2 pieces of evidence, Spirit Box will always be a guaranteed piece of evidence for Moroi. Next up, let's talk about the Myling. Mylings have the evidence combination of EMF 5, Ultraviolet, and Ghost Writing. Mylings start hunting at 50% average sanity and will move at 1.7 meters per second during a hunt. This is what that sounds like. The footsteps and vocals of a Myling during a hunt is reduced compared to all other ghosts. A Myling cannot be heard from further than 12 meters away compared to the normal 20 meters. One of the common ways to test for a Myling is to turn on a flashlight and drop it on the floor. If your flashlight is flickering but you don't hear any footsteps, it's a Myling. Mylings will also produce responses on the parabolic microphone more frequently than all other ghosts. A Myling will produce a parabolic sound every 64 to 128 seconds, while every other ghost is between 80 and 128 seconds, meaning that if you get 2 parabolic responses within 80 seconds of each other, you're dealing with a Myling. Next up, we're going to talk about the Obake, which is personally my favorite ghost. The Obake has the evidence combination of EMF 5, Ultraviolet, and Ghost Orbs. It can start hunting you at 50% average sanity, and it moves at a speed of 1.7 meters per second. And this is what that sounds like. The Obake has some really fun abilities. Let's first start with how Obake fingerprint mechanics work. The Obake has a chance to leave behind unique fingerprint models on doors, windows, coolers, light switches, keyboards, and cell doors. On doors, windows, and coolers, the Obake has a chance to leave behind a 6-fingered fingerprint. On light switches, it has a chance to leave a double fingerprint. And on keyboards and cell doors, it has a chance to leave behind a 5-finger fingerprint. However, the Obake also has a 25% chance to not leave UV evidence whenever it interacts with something that it would normally give UV on. And it also has a chance to make UV evidence disappear twice as fast. During a hunt, the Obake will shapeshift between different ghost models of the same gender that the ghost is for that contract, and this happens on predetermined blinks. The blinks that the Obake will change models on is 12, 27, 39, 54, 62, 80, 105, 120, and 132, meaning that you'll usually see at least 2 shapeshifts during a hunt, depending on the hunt duration of your difficulty. Obakes also have a 25% chance to miss a footstep during ghost events, so if it sounds like your ghost is skipping footsteps during an event, consider Obake an option. And lastly, for Obake, if you're playing on difficulty like Nightmare or Insanity where you only have 1 or 2 pieces of evidence available to you, then UV will always be a guaranteed piece of evidence for Obake. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the Obambo. The Obambo has the evidence combination of Ghost Writing, Ultraviolet, and Dots. It has 2 different sanities that it can hunt at depending on the state that it's in. When it's in its aggressive state, it can start hunting at 65% average sanity, and it will move at a speed of 1.96 meters per second. This is what that sounds like. When it's in its calm state, it can start hunting at 10% average sanity, and it will move at a speed of 1.45 meters per second during a hunt. This is what that sounds like. The Obambo will switch between a calm state and an aggressive state every 2 minutes, and this timer starts halfway through the calm state when you open the front door. When a hunt is started in the aggressive state, the duration of the hunt is decreased by 20%. On top of that, the Obambo can change states during a hunt, going from fast to slow or vice versa. Next up, let's talk about the Oni. The Oni has the evidence combination of EMF 5, freezing temperatures, and Dot. It can start hunting at 50% average sanity, and it will move at 1.7 meters per second during a hunt. This is what that sounds like. Onis are most active around multiple people and are unable to do mist-form ghost events, meaning that all of the Oni's ghost events will be physical form ghost events, and they are more likely to appear as a full ghost model rather than shadow or translucent. Oni's ghost events will also drain 20% sanity instead of the standard 10% from ghost events from all other ghost types. The Oni is most identified by its blinking pattern. An Oni will blink more frequently during hunts, making them more visible. This right here is what a normal blinking ghost pattern looks like, and this right here is what an Oni looks like. Next up, we have the Onryo. There is a lot of firelight mechanics to this ghost, so pay close attention. The evidence combination of Onryo is Spirit Box, Ghost Orbs, and freezing temperatures. The Onryo can hunt at any sanity when using its ability, 60% average sanity normally, and can't hunt until 40% average sanity when near lit firelights. It will move at a speed of 1.7 meters per second during a hunt, and this is what that sounds like. Alright, let me try to break this down in an easy way. The Onryo will try to hunt at any sanity after extinguishing every third flame. However, flames act as crucifixes at the same time. If an Onryo blows out its third flame, but there's another lit firelight nearby within 4 meters of the ghost, the Onryo will prioritize that flame over any crucifix that is on the floor, or stop it from actually starting a hunt, and it will blow out that flame, not allowing the Onryo to hunt. The more players that are dead, the more likely it becomes that the Onryo extinguishes a flame. Onryos also cannot light any fire sources, such as house candles or the campfires on Maple Lodge and Camp Woodwind. Now, let's talk about some abilities and no evidence identification, because there is a lot for the Onryo. The Onryo is the only ghost that can blow out any tier of firelight before 30 seconds has passed after it's been lit for the first time that entire contract. So, if you light a firelight for the very first time, and it gets blown out before 30 seconds passes, it's an Onryo. The Onryo is also the only ghost that can blow out the same firelight twice within 20 seconds of each other. It's also the only ghost that can blow out a tier 1 or a tier 2 firelight within 20 seconds after it's lit. And lastly, Onryo is the only ghost that can blow out your lighter within 20 seconds of activating it. So, if you turn on your lighter and it's blown out before 20 seconds passes after activating your lighter, it's an Onryo. Up next, we have the Phantom. The evidence combination of Phantom is Spirit Box, Ultraviolet, and Dots. It can start hunting at 50% average sanity, and the speed of a Phantom during a hunt is 1.7 meters per second. This is what that sounds like. Be careful of phantoms if you like your sanity, because players will lose 0.5% sanity per second while in heartbeat range of the ghost during hunts and events. Phantoms also have a roam ability where they can roam towards a random player, and when they do so, it will leave EMF 2 at the location that it roams to. The EMF level will be left at head height, which is easy to check with a tier 3 EMF. Phantoms will not appear inside of photos that are labeled as ghost photos or videos labeled as ghost, except for hunting ghost video. And lastly, phantoms are less visible during hunts with a slower blinking speed. They often disappear for a long period of time between blinks compared to the normal ghost. This is what a phantom blink looks like compared to a normal ghost. Up next, let's talk about a fan favorite ghost, the Poltergeist. Poltergeists have the evidence combination of Spirit Box, Ultraviolet, and Ghost Riding. They can start hunting at 50% average sanity, and they move at a speed of 1.7 meters per second during a hunt. This is what that sounds like. During hunts, Poltergeist will also throw items more often and with more power than all other ghost types, throwing an item every 0.5 seconds. Poltergeists also have a higher chance to throw and interact with items, and they can also throw objects faster and further than all other ghost types, even outside of hunts. Lastly, the Poltergeist has an ability that the community has called a Polty Bomb, where it can interact with multiple objects at the same time, decreasing nearby player sanity by 2% per item that is thrown. And there are 4 variants of this Polty Bomb: just the normal throw, levitate and throw, levitate and drop, and levitate and throw at player. Up next, let's talk about the Raiju. It has the evidence combination of EMF 5, Ghost Orbs, and Dots. Its hunting sanity is 50% average sanity unless there is active electronics on near the ghost. Then the hunting sanity is 65%. There is 2 speeds during a hunt for the Raiju, and it depends on if the Raiju is detecting any nearby player electronics that are on. If the Raiju isn't detecting any electronics, it'll move at 1.7 meters per second. And this is what that sounds like. But if it detects any player electronics nearby that are on, the Raiju will move at 2.5 meters per second. And this is what that sounds like. Raijus have a larger disturbance range for electronics than all other ghosts, having a 15 meter range instead of 10 meters, meaning that your radio will have static from further away, and your electronics will malfunction from a further range than they normally would. And lastly, the Raiju has a much louder and more bass boosted heartbeat than all other ghosts. This is what that sounds like. Next up, the Revenant. There is nothing to know about Revenants besides from its evidence, hunting sanity, and speed. Revenants have the evidence combination of ghost orbs, ghost riding, and freezing temperatures. They can start hunting at 50% average sanity and have 2 different speeds during a hunt. The first speed happens when it has no line of sight on any players, and it does not detect any players nearby. The Revenant in this case moves at 1 meter a second, and this is what that sounds like. The second speed happens if the Revenant has line of sight on a player or detects an electronic or radio from a nearby player. And if that happens, the Revenant will move at 3 meters a second. This is what that sounds like. Next up, we have the Shade. Shades have the evidence combination of EMF 5, ghost riding, and freezing temperatures. It can start hunting at 35% average sanity, has a speed of 1.7 meters per second during a hunt, and this is what that sounds like. When using a music box, summoning circle, or monkey paw for ghost events, the Shade is the only ghost in the game that can appear as the shadow ghost model. On top of that, Shades cannot do singing ghost events, meaning that they can be ruled out if your ghost does a singing ghost event. Shades also do prefer shadow ghost models more during events. The lower your sanity with a Shade, the more it will do ghost events. Shades are not able to do events, hunt, or any interactions that result in EMF 2, EMF 3, or EMF 5 while a player is inside of the same room as the ghost. This does include ghost riding and blowing out firelights. However, be careful that the ghost doesn't just step outside of the room and then interact with these from the other room, leading you to rule out a Shade too early. Next up, we have the Spirit. While the journal says that this is the most common ghost, all ghost types have a 1 in 27 chance in spawning for that contract. The evidence for Spirit is EMF 5, Spirit Box, and Ghost Riding. It can hunt starting at 50% average sanity and moves at 1.7 meters per second during a hunt. This is what that sounds like. There is only one mechanic to the Spirit, and it involves using an incense, or also referred to as a smudge stick. When using a smudge stick near the Spirit, it must wait 180 seconds or 3 minutes before hunting again, compared to the normal 90 seconds for 25 other ghosts in the game, meaning that if you smudge the ghost and it hunts before 3 minutes, you can rule out Spirit. Next up, we have the Thaye. Thays have the evidence of ghost orbs, ghost riding, and dots. Their speed during a hunt and sanity they hunt at is depending on if the Thaye is aged or not. So I'm going to take a second to explain the mechanic along with the speed and sanity that it hunts at. At the start of a contract, Thays will start at their youngest state. The ghost will then attempt to age every 1 to 2 minutes. If a player is in the same room when it attempts this, the ghost will age. Otherwise, it will wait 30 seconds and try again. When the Thaye is in its youngest state, it can hunt at 75% average sanity. When it's in its oldest state, it can hunt at 15% average sanity. And when the Thaye is in its youngest state, the Thaye moves at 2.75 meters per second during a hunt. This is what that sounds like. When it's in its oldest state, the Thaye will move at 1 meter per second during a hunt. This is what that sounds like. It's important to mention that Thays have 0 line of sight speed up, meaning that they will stay the same speed that they are the entire hunt, regardless of if it has line of sight on a player for an extended period of time. Thays are more active when they are younger, and lastly, you can use a Ouija board to identify a Thaye. The Thaye will tell you its age on the Ouija board when you ask it how old are you, meaning that if you ask the question when it's in its youngest state, and then ask again when it's aged, it will show an older age as its next answer. Additionally, it's the only ghost that can have an answer of over 90 years old on the Ouija board. Let's go ahead and talk about the Mimic. This ghost is really easy to understand, so I'm going to put it in the simplest way possible. The actual evidence for a Mimic is Spirit Box, Ultraviolet, and freezing temperatures. However, its ghost ability creates an orb inside of the Mimic's favorite room, meaning that you sometimes might get 4 pieces of evidence. Additionally, it's the only ghost in the game that can give you the evidence combination of Spirit Box, Ultraviolet, and ghost orbs, so be careful of those 2 things. The Mimic will mimic and copy a different ghost hunting speed, hunting sanity, and all abilities and behavior every 30 to 120 seconds, meaning that the Mimic will have a different speed, hunting sanity, and ghost abilities every 2 minutes. So when it comes to the hunting sanity for Mimic, it depends on which ghost it is mimicking. And when it comes for the ghost speed during a hunt, it also depends on which ghost it is mimicking. Next up, we have the Twins. The Twins have the evidence combination of EMF 5, Spirit Box, and freezing temperatures. The Twins can start hunting at 50% average sanity and at 2 different speeds that it can hunt at. It'll either hunt as the slow twin or the fast twin, and this is decided randomly at the start of a hunt. The first speed is the slow twin. It moves at 1.5 meters per second, and this is what that sounds like. The second speed is the fast twin. It moves at 1.9 meters per second, and this is what that sounds like. The twins are able to do 2 interactions at the same time, one within its standard radius of 2.12 meters or 4.24 meters on large maps, and the other interaction within its extended radius of 8.48 meters or 16.97 meters on large maps. This increased interaction range gives the illusion that there's 2 different ghosts, when in reality it's just one with an increased range compared to all other ghosts. When the twins initiate a hunt, it'll first perform a crucifix check at its current location before choosing whether to hunt as a slow twin or a fast twin, with each having a 50% chance. If choosing to be slow, the hunt will begin at its current location. If it chooses to be fast, it'll teleport close to the area where it last interacted within the large range it has and will hunt from there. Next up, we have the Wraith. Wraiths have the evidence combination of EMF 5, Spirit Box, and dots. It can start hunting at 50% average sanity, and it will move at 1.7 meters per second during a hunt. This is what that sounds like. Wraiths can teleport to a random player, leaving EMF 2 or EMF 5 at the new location. If you have a tier 3 EMF reader, this can be used to check for its ability as it's left at foot height. It'll walk back to its favorite room after teleporting. Lastly, the Wraith will not interact with salt in any way. So if the ghost walks through salt during a hunt, it will not disturb it, meaning that it can't be slowed by tier 3 salt during a hunt. Next up, the Yokai. Yokais have the evidence combination of Spirit Box, Ghost Orb, and dots. It can hunt at 50% average sanity when nobody is talking in the same room as the Yokai. However, if a player is talking in the same room as the Yokai, it can hunt at 80% average sanity. The Yokai moves at 1.7 meters per second during a hunt, and this is what that sounds like. The Yokai is more active when players are talking around it, and the best way to identify it on no evidence is by checking the detection range of the ghost during a hunt. The Yokai has a hearing and detection distance of 2.5 meters, compared to the normal 7.5 meters with electronics and 9 meters with voice, meaning that if far away enough, you can use your radio to test for a Yokai. If the radio gives a static sound and doesn't come to you, then you know it's a Yokai, with the exception of the ghost being a Banshee and you not being the target in multiplayer. Lastly, let's talk about the Yurei. Yureis have the evidence combination of ghost orbs, freezing temperatures, and dots. It can hunt starting at 50% average sanity and moves at 1.7 meters per second. This is what that sounds like. Smudging a Yurei will trap the Yurei in its ghost room for 90 seconds, meaning that it must walk back to its room if it's currently outside of its favorite room, or if it's inside of its favorite room, then it can't roam out of it until 90 seconds has passed. However, it's not able to give dots as an evidence during this period of time. Whenever a Yurei interacts with a door, it must fully open or fully close the door. If it touches the door and it results in it only being half opened, or any position that is not fully open or fully closed, you can 100% rule out Yurei. This is true for normal doors, closets, lockers, and even the breaker door. The Yurei is the only ghost in the game that can close or interact with any exit door outside of a hunt or event. And lastly, Yureis have the ability to shut a door and drop the sanity of nearby players by 15% if a door is in the room. This is what the closing version and opening version of what is known as a Yurei door touch looks like. And with that, we've officially covered all 27 ghost types inside of Phasmophobia. If this video helped you, then once again, I'm going to take a second and ask you to leave a like and subscribe, as I am trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I also want to take a second to tell you guys about my new Patreon that is linked in the description. There's a lot of perks and many different memberships available at different prices over there. Some of the perks include early access to videos, the list of my planned videos, uncensored versions of videos, and there's also a tier on there that puts you in contact with me for Phasmophobia coaching, where I will make any Phasmophobia tutorial that you need 100% tailored and custom to your needs, on top of me reviewing one of your Phasmophobia games each month and telling you what you could be doing better. But also, if you don't want to support on Patreon, but you still want to support my content further, then consider becoming a YouTube member, as you still get a lot of perks with that as well. But with that, that is everything that I have for you in this video, and hope to see all of you guys in the next one.